Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Now That You Mention It podcast with Roland J.
I'm Roll.
And I'm Jay. And as always, we're coming to you from our house during
No,
the
actually, I'm
COVID-19
coming
podcast.
from Cowboy Stadium.
Oh, I forgot. He's at the Star hanging out with Jerry Jones or at Cowboy Stadium. He might be on the yacht. He might be on the Bravo Eugenia. He's kind of all over the place this week.
I will be when I can crop that into my green screen.
Yeah. What you need to do is put Jerry right next to you.
Right? Yeah. I need to record some of his Jerryisms and then play them randomly. Let you insert them into the broadcast.
That would be awesome. First of all, guys, I want to say thank you for the past couple of weeks. We've gotten a lot of responses from the past episodes that we've done. Again, if you like what we're doing, if you can hit the like and subscribe button down at the bottom and leave us a comment with any ideas, any feedback, anything that you want to hear. But other than that, we enjoy doing this. So we're going to get started for this week. The biggest thing coming to mind right off the bat, bro, is the state getting ready to open back up. Because having spent so much time in the restaurant industry, I am so curious to see how this is going to go. There are so many people chomping at the bit to get out and eat at a restaurant. They're tired of being at home. They're tired of just going to the park. They're ready to get out and go somewhere. But, with the state only opening up to 25% capacity starting off, I was talking to my wife and I was doing the math, and I told her that, in a 50-seat restaurant, which is pretty standard for a smaller type restaurant, at 25% capacity, you're talking about 12 people that can go in at a time. And I'm kind of curious to see those places that will have people waiting in line and see how long they'll wait to get in. Now, obviously, a lot of people are not going to go out at the very beginning, but I'm kind of curious to see how they, how people are going to react.
Well, remember last week we talked about Colleyville opening up their restaurants.
Exactly.
I don't know if you saw I think it was a news story.
Yeah.
That people were waiting in line as long as 4 hours to sit at, I think it was the Glorias over there.
Yeah, it was Gloria's in Colleyville. And I saw the images from their patio.
Right.
And I mean, I get it. We've all been stuck at home, but I know you're like me. I'm not waiting in line for anything for 4 hours.
I might not even wait for 45 minutes.
I don't wait for 45 minutes. When we go to a host stand, and my wife will tell you this and she'll test this because she gets mad at me sometimes. Right. If we go to a host stand and they tell me the wait is 45 minutes to an hour, I'm out. I am out. I don't care how good the food is. I don't care how good the drinks are, how good the vibe is. I'm not waiting in line for anything for 45 minutes to an hour. My line of demarcation is 30 minutes.
Let's go back a little bit. Let's remember when you went to In-N-Out Burger when they first came to Texas.
No. I did.
You waited in the line. I did.
But you know what? I did that as an experiment because I was curious. Now, when the first In-N-Out opened, I did not. Man, there's no way. That line was 2 hours long, and I wasn't waiting for that. Yeah. When I went to the actual opening In-N-Out was when they opened the In-N-Out over off of 635. I think it's over by Preston in that area. Right. I did go to that one when they opened, and you're right. I waited in line for about an hour, but I did that as an experiment, and I really just wanted to see how the food was going to be compared to, because you get curious. You're like, everybody's talking about, oh my God, this is the best one. I saw videos of people crying, eating an In-N-Out burger as they're waiting for, to get in. I don't either, man. You know what? I've given an In-N-Out burger 3 chances in my life. And the first time I was like, meh, wasn't that great. The second time I went, it was because somebody had said to me, oh, because you didn't do it right, Jay. You got to have it animal style. You got to get it this way and this way. I'm like, all right, you know what? I'm game. Let me try it a second time. And tried it out a second time, and I was, again, not impressed. thoroughly unimpressed. And the third time was because I took someone with me that wanted to go, had never been. I'd been a couple of times. They wanted to try it out. We went to In-N-Out Burger, and again, it was just not. I don't get it, but whatever. I'm sure there's people out there that don't get Whataburger, but being from Texas, I'll tell you, Whataburger is the best fast food burger out there.
Whataburger is the king, no doubt about it. I would tell you that my experience with In-N-Out Burger is very, very similar to yours. I've probably been a couple more times than you have. We have on occasion stopped just to get a burger from them, but
Yeah.
it's not anywhere in our regular rotation. I have to really be experimental to want to go back to In-N-Out. My default is always Whataburger.
Yeah.
They're kings here, or Jake's Burgers, or some. Yeah, we've even got a local place here where I live, where I like their burgers better. Have you ever tried Five Guys?
Oh yeah, I've tried all the major chains: Five Guys, Smash Burgers,
Right.
In-N-Out, Whataburger. I am always looking to try something different when it comes to food because, being in the restaurant industry, I always told people, niche restaurants are great, but they're just that. They're niches. Barbecue places, there's a lot of great barbecue places, but how often can you eat barbecue? Once a week?
Well, if you're from
maybe.
Texas all the time, apparently.
Apparently, but
go ahead, finish.
I was going to say, but burger joints, I've tried them all. You get kind of tired of one burger. I love Whataburger, but every now and then I want something different than Whataburger. I want to try something out. And I have my rotation too. But when it comes to fast food in Texas, there's nothing better than Whataburger.
I agree. That's my favorite too. Well, if we're going to have a burger, we really craving a burger, Whataburger is going to be our first choice. Thankfully, there's one just a few minutes from the house, so it's convenient. But going back to how we got started on this topic anyway, when you talk about reopening the state, restaurants are definitely going to have their own, I guess, ways of making customers feel comfortable coming back and sitting in the restaurant. Patios obviously are a huge bonus. I agree with you. I don't think there's anything I would wait 4 hours for, even if it is to be sitting outside eating. I can go to my backyard. Let me get takeout, go sit in the backyard, breathe fresh air, talk to you guys on the phone, rather than sit and wait 4 hours. I think I would be, as Grandma used to call it, very hangry by the time I got to sit down and eat.
But there are going to be those people that are out there that are, they just want to get out of the house. They're itching to get back to a restaurant. They're itching to get back to normal life. And I get it. Some of the things that came down in the governor's speech the other day, though, malls, I guess, because retail is essential. But what were some of the other ones? Malls, churches, I get, places of worship.
Movie theaters too, right?
Movie theaters. That was the one that threw me for a loop. I don't know about that. I don't know if people are ready to go back to movie theaters. I think that although people want to get out for entertainment, is it really a great idea to start getting? I mean, if you're not going to do it for a sporting event, for baseball or basketball, hockey, why a movie theater?
Well, some people need to get out. Just like you said, your work has been deemed essential, so you've been going to work regularly.
Right.
But even in the instance of you talked before about your wife, she's been having cabin fever because she can't go to work. She's been stuck at home. And in her profession, she really doesn't have the ability to even get out and practice one-on-one because, as you said, she could potentially lose her license.
Right.
And that brings up this other story. What do you think about the person that or the lady in North Dallas that is defiant in opening her
Right.
salon back
You know,
up?
again, you and I have talked about this in the past. There are so many people who are on one side of an issue and so far on the other side of an issue. And I'm kind of down the middle because I agree with her. And I see the perspective of everybody who says, man, we got to get back to work. We got to get the economy started. We got to get, I've got to get back to work. Waiting on unemployment's not working. I've been waiting X amount of weeks and I still haven't heard anything back. I need to do something for my family. But then from the perspective of, again, like I said, with my wife and her illness, with her having asthma, it's scary to think that, she may have to go back to, obviously she doesn't have to go back right now if she doesn't want to, but if they were to open salons back up tomorrow, she's got clients that are begging her to come back. They've been begging her during this whole pandemic to come to their house and do their hair, offering her again absurd amount of money to go do it. And again, she's been steadfast in not doing it because A, she doesn't want to lose her license, and B, she doesn't want to get sick. But I think the pressure would be really big on her to come back to work tomorrow if the salon opened to start doing clients again.
Well, not to mention that, but she also, fortunately for the both of you, you're still earning an income.
Right.
It's a different story when if she was a stylist and she was the sole income provider for her family.
Right.
And it's one thing if she was by herself, but she has parents that depend on her.
Right.
And then a lot of hairdressers, they make a pretty good living. They have children, they have people that depend on them. And when they're the majority income earner in their houses, it is difficult. It's hard not to say, I cannot afford to stay home. I'm willing to take that risk. Let me go out there and take the chance. I mean, you kind of got to weigh the two things,
right?
Because no matter
and
what,
like I said,
you could die of starvation just as easily as you could die of the COVID. So
right,
and starvation is a tough thing to contend with when you're not used to it.
Yeah, and we've had this debate amongst ourselves, even in our family, phone video chat that we've had in the past about how we choose to live our lives. I'm one of those. I'm not afraid to go out and pump gas and feel that need to have to Purell my hands right after I put the nozzle down. I'm like that too. I refuse to live in fear, but I kind of have to temper myself just because I have to be careful for my wife. Not only is, with her asthma, but her, elderly parents live with us who are both in their 70s, who are on the far end of those people that are at risk for this. So I kind of have to be careful with what I do. But I see her point, and her wanting to get out and do, I don't see anything wrong with it. If she feels safe enough to go back to work and say, hey, I feel confident enough that I can protect my clients, then more power to her. But by the same token, I get all the people that are like, well, it's too soon. What if, she gets one person sick, because there's so many good points on both sides of the argument that it's hard to just side with one side. It's hard to just, agree fully with one side of the argument because each side has so many valid points.
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. It comes down to what is the larger issue for you. If you're concerned about COVID and you have other means and you can afford to stay home and still pay bills, still eat, then you're probably going to opt for staying home if you don't have to go to work. Right. But there are people that, for given the backlog in the system, unemployment help is not coming anytime soon. There are a lot of people that are fighting just to get the stimulus money that was promised to them. by the government. Unfortunately, the IRS is having their share of issues, and I'm not blaming necessarily the IRS. Some of these people, because they were in economic situations where they had to have third-party income tax preparers, though their stimulus payments got sent to those third-party preparers, and those third-party preparers have then sent the money back, or maybe in some cases even possibly absconded with money. I'm sure some of that has happened. And so,
yeah,
when those people when you get desperate enough, I mean, you'll take all kinds of crazy risks if you have to, because the alternative is to stay home and starve, stay home and go into foreclosure, stay home and be at risk of losing your car. Those are all very scary things. And in particular, when you're part of a family, when you have children depending on you, you have elderly dependent on you, you're going to do what you got to do. And I can't really fault anybody for that. I myself do have those concerns. I share those with you. We don't know how to deal with this just yet. You can't be afraid, or you can't be scared to the level that you're going to stop. But by the same token, my greater concern is that I think there's a segment of people that just don't give a shit about anything anyway.
Into that.
And so they're gonna do whatever the heck they want to do. And those are the people that I'm concerned about, because, anytime you give someone this much, they take that much, and it's just inherent in them. They really don't care. They don't care. They only care about themselves. And that's what my concern is, that and the fact that we've already challenged our healthcare system just with this first wave. What's it going to be like if that wave resurges again?
Not only resurges, what if it doubles?
And again, right. We already see that we can't deal with the challenges right now. What happens when it goes up again? It'll be definitely something that we're going to have to keep an eye on. I think just use your best judgment, use common sense.
Right.
Wear a mask if you're going to be in close proximity to people. Wear your gloves. Make sure you got sanitizer. Sanitize when you've been out and about for a long time. Come home. Follow the some of the recommendations that they put out there, and most of all, just be patient. I think that's the biggest part of the hardest part for people to deal with, is being patient, because we're no longer programmed to be patient. We want everything instantaneously. We want it now. We really don't care who's inconvenienced for me to get what I want. So those are the things I'm certainly curious to see how we deal with those people, particularly because enforcement to me is what's really going to be the challenge.
Yes.
How are you going to enforce it? How do you?
There's no way to police this. There's no way to, there's not enough law enforcement around to cover everybody. There just isn't. And this is where you start getting those people who are afraid of, big government and taking away our rights, and them telling us, well, you have to have a mask when you go out. There's some cities out there that are finding people for being out without a mask. There's no way to enforce it. Like you said, there's no way to police it. And I think, you're right. People have to use their better judgment. People have to be able to say, I'm grown, and if I want to, put myself at risk to go out to eat at Gloria's, then you know what, I'm going to do it. But I
tend to believe that most people really are, at least have a decent mindset that they're going to try. But again, you're always going to have those few that don't. And then how do the rest of us react when it's kind of like when you're standing in line and somebody cuts in front of you, right? Yeah. Some people are going to they're ready to go to war. They're pissed off, and there's going to be fisticuffs. There are people who they're timid enough. They're just kind of take a step back and let them come in. And then you're going to have a few people in between that are going to voice their opposition and get vocal about it, but they're really not going to, get confrontational per se.
Yeah.
So anyway, we'll see. What I'm hoping for is that we get back to some sort of normalcy so that the average person can feel like there's a light at the end of the tunnel.
The only thing that I'm not looking forward to in this whole thing is, and the one thing that has brought me so much joy is going to work in the morning and no traffic. And I'm going to miss that, because I can almost guarantee on Friday morning, I'm going to have to leave just a little bit early because, I've kind of conditioned myself over the last month and a half to almost 2 months that, hey, traffic is down. I can leave a little bit later. I don't have to worry about, getting over the bridge by my house to get over to the highway. And once I get on the highway, it's open. And I'm doing 75, 80 the whole way there. And there's nothing around me. And I just know that's going to go away on Friday. I can almost guarantee it. For sure.
People are going to give them an opportunity. They're going to get back in their cars. They're going to get back on the road. They're going to go do things. Some people just need to get out of the house, period. And even if it's just taking a drive to the office just to go see what's going on over there, I think some people will do it. Yeah. But that's, again, it'll be a test. We'll see. Hopefully we can cope appropriately. People follow enough, have enough common sense to use safe practice, and we don't have to go back into this mode of, we better shut down because we're seeing another spike.
Right. Well, I'm praying for the best. I'm hoping for the best. We'll see where it goes from here. And my only hope is that people are going to be smart enough to realize that things are not going to be 100% normal for a while. And I hope they take that with a grain of salt. Speaking of not being normal, I know you watched the draft.
I did.
I think that was pretty cool.
That's why I'm in Cowboy Stadium.
So before we actually talk about it, we're going to bring on a special guest. This is Roll's oldest son, RJ, Roland Jr.
Hey, guys.
How are you?
Just here in North Dallas in quarantine. Just taking it one day by day. You guys had sounds like a great conversation about the status of things right now. I think you guys made some great points. You can see both sides. So I think, we just kind of have to have sympathy for one another and just, remember that we're all in this together. But, ready for business and sports and those things to open when the time's appropriate, of course. So.
Well, and this is how I know that you are my brother's son, is the fact that I see that big old star on your chest and the big old smile on your face, because I know you know that the Cowboys had a great draft. But let me ask you, RJ, what did you think about the presentation of the draft?
I think this is a format that could potentially be the future. Of course, it might not happen, right away, but I think there is some benefit to, seeing the families together rather than, being in Las Vegas where they would have been this year. Of course, it all came about, because of the current situation, but I think there was some benefit to it. That's just my opinion.
I agree. I think the NFL did a great job given the circumstances. I don't know if you saw, but the viewership on the draft was through the roof.
It was something crazy.
Yeah, it was pretty phenomenal. But I do think that once we have the ability to go back to normal, it's going to go back to normal, because I think there's too many opportunities for the NFL to make additional money having it in a destination, because there are going to be people that'll fly out there. They're going to be people that spend money. They're going to be people that that will boost economic functions in whatever host city it's going to be, and all that's going to trickle back to the NFL. But I do agree that this format lends itself to maybe more exploration. Dare I say, we're going to ever get to the point where the NFL draft becomes pay-per-view. I think we're slowly headed that way. Hopefully it never happens in my lifetime, because I don't want to pay for it. But let's be honest. I mean, if we want it bad enough, we will. And so maybe to some degree that'll kind of open up a revenue stream where the NFL could do something like this. But I agree with you. Seeing families together on TV, how they react, everybody being themselves because they're in their own environment. Sometimes when they're in a suit, or sometimes when they know they're going to be in the company of a lot of their peers, they tend to have a little bit more reserved reaction. However, I think there were a lot of genuine reactions when people were drafted. And then, I think there was a lot of chest beating. Jerry Jones, for example, that was definitely pretty cool to see his yacht, his war room.
Okay.
On the yacht.
That leads me to my next question for you guys. Obviously, Jerry Jones had the badass Bond villain set up with the white couch and who do you think had the second best setup? RJ.
I'm not gonna lie. I didn't watch much of the draft live, but from what I did see, Cliff Kingsbury had a pretty interesting setup. That dude looked like he was the Ryan Reynolds of the NFL, if you will. Belichick setup was pretty interesting. He had a dog drafting farm.
But he looked like he was sitting in his grandmother's grandmother's kitchen. But I agree, man. Coach Bro had the setup, man. That view that he had. I was just wondering who was taking the pictures for him. Man, he looked like
I heard a report. Go ahead.
It looked like he was sitting in front of Mount Olympus with the little flame outside in the yard and the view of the mountains. And I was like, man, that dude is living the life, man.
No, I saw that Tyrann Mathieu after the draft had tweeted, well, that's where all my money had gone to. That's why they couldn't sign me again. So, but one thing I was going to say is I was hearing a report on ESPN about what's his name? What's his name again? I'm sorry. Cliff Kingsbury's place, that he has no outlets near him, so he has to run like a cord just to have proximity to an outlet. But of course, he had like 3 phones with him that day, so pretty interesting.
Yeah, he had 3 phones, 8 computers, ungodly setup, and no power. But, the coach Bruce Arians for Tampa Bay, he had a pretty sweet setup too. He was sitting out in his his patio outside of his house in the nice weather, out there in shorts, just salivating over the fact that Gronk and TB12 are going to be there next year. But I enjoyed the setup of the NFL draft. I thought it was actually really cool that they were able to pull that off. And I know earlier in the week they had run some tests to see how it was going to work, and there were some glitches. But I think they got pretty much most of them cleared out, other than Mike McCarthy looking like this.
The one point I will make is that, obviously pointing back to, what my dad said with the revenue, just take this year, for example, they would have had it at the Bellagio Fountains. And while I'm sure they have some great negotiators, they would have had to pay, some pretty decent money to host it there. Whereas if they do it in online format, they really don't have to pay anybody anything, and they can still, blast these advertisements. So I think they'll try to do some, combination. I'm not saying they're going to go strictly online, but I think they might also look, hey, we may not have to dish out as much money if we, figure out how to do this the right way.
Yeah. So let's talk about your boys and their first round pick, CeeDee Lamb. What's that? What do you think, Roll?
I'm excited. I would have personally would have liked them to focus on defense first, but as we talked about in our last podcast, Jerry Jones is known for taking quality talent if it's available at the right spot. And I got to be honest, I'm happy with the pick. I'm excited to see what he brings to the team. I think it just bolsters our offense, gives Dak another weapon. I think it'll make us extremely difficult to shut down on offense. You got Zeke in the backfield, got Dak who can throw. He proved this past year his accuracy has increased tremendously, and he's still a running threat. And now you're going to have Cooper and Gallup and CeeDee Lamb, it potentially, Des Bryant too coming back.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to have a very, very solid receiving core, and then of course our tight end. Gosh, why am I going blank right now?
Jarwin.
Yeah, Jarwin.
Jarwin.
Yeah, that guy's got he's got some playmaking ability. So I think offensively we're going to be a powerhouse. Now, if we can just set up a reasonable defense to keep other teams, occasionally get them a 3 and out and get them off the field, I'm going to be very, very curious to see how our offense and what Dak's numbers are going to look like this next year, because you give him.
I think that was one of the things that I think the Cowboys graded so high in their draft this year was the fact that, yes, they took CeeDee Lamb in the first round, but I think with the rest of the draft, they addressed a lot of their needs.
Right.
And then along with the free agent signings that they've made so far, have addressed some of those needs. I am kind of concerned about losing Travis Frederick this offseason. That he's a big part of that offense, and the fact that he basically runs that line. He points everything out. He's the one, calling defenses out sometimes. And I think that's going to hurt. I don't know that who they picked up this year to replace him is going to be as sufficient as Travis Frederick, and I think that was probably one of my only concerns about the offense moving forward is just that line and the hit that they took, because that's a big hit for them. He's one of the captains of the team.
You got to remember though, bro, we played a whole year without him when he was dealing with that what is it called,
Guillain-Barré syndrome.
Yeah, syndrome, right. And I think we did an adequate job. I mean, certainly you can't replace the caliber guy like that very easily. And I know that we picked up the center in, I think, the 5th round that hopefully could become, can become a very solid player. Time will tell. But I mean, I think we can reasonably cover for the loss of Frederick. I mean, I agree with you. You would much rather have him, but I think he made the best decision for himself and his family long term.
Yeah, obviously.
And
I don't think anybody faults him for retiring. That it is what it is. When I've heard people that had that same syndrome just amazed at the fact that he was even come back to play 1 year. It's apparently so debilitating that it changes somebody's life. And for him to be able to recover after a year and come back and play another year at that level in the NFL at the highest level of his sport. And then, I don't think anybody faults him retiring. There's no way anybody can.
Well, and to that point, I think, that's going to be somewhat of a shift in the modern day NFL. You're going to see guys who come in, come out, they just make their money. Not everybody wants to be in it, for the greatness necessarily. I think with a lot of the science that's being applied to, the NFL now, that guys just don't want to take that risk. They want to be able to still live life after this. So, we could see a shift of more players retiring early and, just going to live their lives.
Yeah, you've seen that in the last couple of years. Who was it that retired last? Luke Kuechly, right?
Yeah.
Who went out last year. He's still in his prime. As far as anybody knows, doesn't have any major injury concerns. But you're right. He's like, hey man, I'm done beating up my body. I've made my money. I'm out. And I agree with you. I think you will see a large number of people who are going to do that. But for every person who does that, you're going to see that one person who is going to hold on too long, a la Tom Brady. You know, I think the smartest thing for him would have been to retire this past year rather than play another year of football. Does he need the money? No. Does he need glory?
No. I think it's easy to say, bro, because we're looking at it from the standpoint of what you just said. Does he really need it? Does he have to have another Super Bowl championship? I think the one thing we forget is football is the thing that once you walk away, there's no going back. I mean, certainly he can be involved as a coach or maybe even a front office guy somewhere down the road. But when you're addicted to playing that game, when you're addicted to being a champion, when you're addicted to, or I should say, when you also feel that you still have something left, it's hard just to walk away and not look back. And Tom Brady has had a blessed career. I mean, he's a phenomenal quarterback. I hate him because he plays for New England, but what we talked about last episode, you got to recognize greatness, and the guy is greatness. And I would say that this past year wasn't really as much of a decline in Tom Brady's skill as the team that was put around him. So it'll be curious to see how he transitions in Tampa Bay. I don't know that they've got again, time will tell there whether they have enough talent on that roster to make him, again, fruitful. But I would venture to say if he goes over there and they have like a 7-9 year and don't make the playoffs and his play is mediocre, there'll be a lot of questions and there'll be a lot of people saying, okay, unfortunately his prime is gone. He's not the quarterback. And it's kind of like your hero, Joe Montana, when he went to Kansas City. Joe Montana he still felt like he had enough in the tank to maybe take another team to a championship. And to some degree, he had success in Kansas City. But,
well, I'm going to stop you right there because if you say one disparaging word about Joe Montana, I'll, take down Cowboy Stadium. I will. I'll put some dynamite outside and blow it up.
Here's what I don't understand. I mean, I get the greatness factor of Joe Montana. Why in the hell do you even like San Francisco? I mean, what about Joe Montana? Well, okay, hold on. Maybe said San Francisco wasn't the right thing.
Because I was on that early bandwagon of liking players more than liking teams. F San Francisco. You know how I feel about that. But man, I don't know. Just something about Joe Montana, dude. There was just something. Joe Cool. The guy was awesome. He was so great.
Well, and here's the thing about sports. Going back to the Tom Brady thing is, I think there's very few people who just know when to call it quits and who, go out on top. Very few people have go out on top like Peyton Manning did. So,
or John Elway.
Yeah, I mean it's such a hard thing to do. So, I mean, we can sit here and criticize Brady, but that competitive nature that he's always had is just gonna not let him go out easily.
And let's be honest, even though you knew that more than likely that Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes, they were ready to go past the Patriots, you still never ruled the Patriots out until the very end. Yeah. Like you could still feel like, oh shit, here we go. Tom Brady's going to do it again. And these guys are going to be another Super Bowl. So when you admittedly are saying that, hey, the guy was still on the verge of taking his team back, or at least being in the hunt for another one, it's hard to say he should just walk away. We'll find out again this year. I think this year will tell us everything we need to know about Tom Brady. And it's not so much about his skill set declining. It just may be he caught lightning in the bottle for the time that he did while he was with Belichick and in New England. And we'll see what he can do in Tampa Bay. And again, I think if he has a mediocre year, I think if he's just kind of a middle of the pack performance in terms of a quarterback, maybe that gives him the mindset to start thinking about, okay, I had my time. It's time to move on. But we'll see.
Well, speaking about greatness, sorry, RJ, I'm cutting you off right there, bud. But speaking about greatness, we're going to talk about The Last Dance again, the Michael Jordan documentary. Well, I say that the Michael Jordan documentary, the Chicago Bulls documentary, that features Michael Jordan more heavily than anything else. It's more about him than it is the Bulls. But each episode has been, I've noticed they're focusing a little bit on a different aspect in each episode. Episode 1 we saw was all about Jordan. Episode 2, we got some Scottie Pippen. And then this past week, they dropped the next 2 episodes, episode 3 and episode 4. Episode 3 focusing on one of RJ's favorite Mavs, Dennis Rodman.
I don't know about that now.
So what did you think about it, RJ? What have you thought about the documentary since up to now?
Yeah, I mean, it's been interesting. Obviously I wasn't born until the year Jordan won his second championship. So I didn't really see a lot of this. I've seen highlights, I've seen the storylines. I do know probably about a lot more about Jordan and, these Bulls team than I'd probably say some of my peers do, just because I am big into sport. But it was interesting to hear a lot more about his background, the competitiveness that he had with his brother, which really gave him that drive that he had in the NBA in a way and in college. And then just Phil's influence on him. And, he was going to be great no matter what. He was always going to get his. But seeing the transition and kind of really learning more about his backstory and what got him to the NBA. Dennis Rodman is a crazy guy, I think. I would have never guessed that Phil was, a hippie in a past life.
But I know when they talk about him having the American Indian or shaman stuff in his office, and just the look of him when he was younger, man, with the bushy hair and the glasses and the bell bottoms. You're right, man. I don't think anybody really, anybody younger ever saw that, the fact that he was a hippie.
Well, in episode 4 where that came out and telling his story, I mean, it helps to understand why he was that way, because how he grew up. His parents were heavily, evangelist preachers. He lived with his grandparents' land with a lot of Native Americans. So, I mean, it was easy to understand how he became influenced and adopted a lot of their beliefs. And I think it definitely was pervasive when he grew up and became that hippie that we talked about. But it was definitely a different upbringing that I think kind of took him down that path. And I agree that it was kind of all the perfect elements coming together in Chicago that would help him to manage Dennis Rodman. One of the things that impressed me in the interviews they did with Jordan, particularly about Dennis Rodman, is that how he said Dennis, he had his issues, he had his little screw ups, but when I needed him, he stepped up. When we needed him, he was there. He worked hard. He played hard. He played smart. And to hear Jordan lay praise on Dennis Rodman is really something too.
Well, the one story that he told that that kind of tripped me out was I think it was shortly after he had to fly out to Vegas to go get Dennis Rodman back from his little vacation. But when they got back to the Bulls facility where they were trying to work him back in, and Phil ran that that drill where whoever was at the front of the line, they couldn't stop running until that guy stopped running and somebody had to pass him or something like that.
Right.
And so everybody was jogging real slow. Everybody was, dogging it. And Dennis Rodman got to the front of the line and ran those guys ragged after being out on
four laps to get back in front of Dennis.
Yeah,
that's right.
And this is coming off of God knows how many day binger in Vegas, to where he's out partying with Carmen Electra and who knows whatever else that dude was doing. Admittedly, he never did drugs, but he drank a lot, man. He drank a lot. And to see something like that dude, I laughed so hard at that part when he's talking about Michael Jordan's like, oh my God, we had to run so hard to catch him. And this guy just came back from, Michael Jordan had to go pull him out of a hotel room.
And Jordan was upset that the whole reason they had to do that exercise in the first place was that Phil he felt the need to get Rodman back up to game shape, get him back into shape in the training. And so that's why Jordan told the rest of the guys, hey man, whoever gets to the front of the line, keep it at a jog's pace. We're not going to kill ourselves because Dennis is not in game shape. And the ironic part was Dennis was the one that made him work the hardest.
Yeah. Dennis go hard, man. He wasn't playing. I almost forget how in greatest shape an athlete Dennis Rodman was, man. There's, shots of him with his shirt off. That dude was ripped.
Yeah.
And dude had a 6-pack. I mean, I'm like, good God. I didn't realize how he was just so toned up and so ripped. I was like, damn, dude.
Well,
you forget these guys are
whatever footage they had of him in the documentary, he's doing one of two things. He's either working out extremely hard or he's partying.
Right.
That's what you see Dennis Rodman doing in most of the clips. He's either working out really hard.
Yeah.
He's always doing something, or he's getting drunk. He's smoking cigars. He's having a party. He's, half undressed and celebrating whatever. So, I mean, he's definitely this guy that when he's got to turn it on, turns it on. And when he turns it off and needs to go unwind, he goes hard and heavy on that too.
No joke, man.
Fun fact. I know I told my dad about this, but did you know that he went to South Oak Cliff High School?
Yeah. He was from here. That was a big deal about, when he started coming up big, that people, oh yeah, man, he's from South Oak Cliff. But yeah, he did go to South Oak Cliff. But yeah, man, that dude was something else, man. And I'm just glad that he was able to land on a team that accepted him for who he was and all his eccentricities, and use that as a way to get him to another championship. Because when he was I think he was severely misunderstood when he was with the Pistons. They saw him as, hey, you need to be a bruiser and we're going to turn you into a bruiser, because they were all bruisers. That was their deal. But man, when he went to San Antonio and started acting out, San Antonio couldn't take it. And, he came to Chicago and they let him be. Phil let him be. And he turned into, he's one of the only, and I saw this on SI, that he had 7 games in his career of 20 rebounds and no points, 0 points.
Yeah, right? That was one of the trivia things they had during the
that's
documentary too. Yeah.
And the next closest person only has 2, and it was like Marcus Camby. And I don't even remember who the other person.
Incredible. The guy was he was a defensive genius. He was a hustler. He was a rebounder. The Worm, it was his nickname. No, he was definitely a much needed element for those second 3 championships that Chicago won. And I
love the part where, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, no, I'm still flabbergasted about the fact that the way they talked about how Jerry Krause went public and basically reaffirmed that he was not going to bring back Phil Jackson. And because he wasn't going to bring back Phil Jackson, and Michael made the statement that he was not going to play for anybody other than Phil Jackson. So essentially, Jerry Krause knew he was saying to Michael Jordan, well, then I guess you're not going to be a Bull next year.
Yeah.
That to me it's incredulous to think that, I mean, it's tantamount to New England telling Tom Brady, yeah, we know you've given us 6 Super Bowls and you almost got us there, but you know what? It's time for us to part ways. Get the heck out of here.
Well, all you got to do is look over your shoulder and look down at your shirt to see an example of that here. It's tantamount to Jerry letting Jimmy go because his ego was too big to accept the fact that Jimmy was the one running that team. And, he had to have the credit. And that's what I think Jerry Krause's thing was. It was an ego thing for him, and he wasn't getting it at the credit that he thought he was going to get.
Well, but the slight difference in this is you're right about Jerry's ego and needing to get the credit for putting the team together. But Jimmy and Jerry, they didn't play on the field. Michael Jordan was on the basketball court, and Jerry Krause let Michael Jordan walk away. That's the difference. Because, no matter how you talk about managing a team or guiding the team, when you got the guy who's putting the seats, the asses in the seats, the guy who basically took your team, yes, you had to put a lot of pieces around them, but you still don't win all those championships without Michael Jordan. You don't win them without Michael Jordan. And to basically tell that guy, I'm in charge here. I'm controlling this team. I'm making these decisions. And so if I'm telling you you're not going to have that coach and you're telling me that you're not going to play for any other coach, well, then I guess we're going to be parting ways soon. But the way he throws it back and says, well, that's Jordan's decision. But ultimately, it's as if him pointing to the door and say, hey, there it is, bud.
That is his decision. RJ?
Was there anything else that you – go ahead.
I was just going to say to that point, it's also to remember he put that team together. I mean, he could have been, like Portland and who went first in that draft again?
Oh, Hakeem Olajuwon went number 1 overall. It was Sam Bowie who went before Jordan.
Yeah, they could have easily been like that, and Jordan would have gone to the Mavericks. And, history is different altogether. So, I mean, he did put that team together and had some foresight. I think
I'm not trying to discredit what Jerry did. I'm just saying, though, it's still just incredulous to me that your team is still on top. Your team is still the best. And rather than try and eke one more year out, you're saying, I don't care. Phil Jackson is not coming back. I don't care that he helped us win 6 titles. Phil Jackson is not coming back. We're not bringing him back. And to know that you've got arguably at that time the greatest basketball player of all time, and you're letting him walk too. That's all I'm saying. But I give kudos to Jerry Krause for putting it together. There's no doubt. And again, he's the one that elevated Phil Jackson in the first place. Yeah. He brought Phil Jackson in. So he was the guy that put the puzzle together. I guess what I'm saying is once he had the puzzle put together, I can't believe he just started saying, okay, well, let's take pieces out of it now, disassemble our puzzle. That's all.
Yeah.
So like RJ, let me ask you this, RJ. So having not grown up in the era of Michael Jordan and for us, even by extension, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, because we talked about this last week. We grew up at the tail end of coming into our sports consciousness at the tail end of the Larry Bird, Magic Johnson years, rolling into the Michael Jordan years. And you're kind of that next generation where you were born at the tail end of the Michael Jordan era. And by the time you came into sports consciousness, he was already gone. Who's your favorite NBA player right now?
Right now, it'd probably have to be Luka, obviously, as a Mavericks homer. If you're talking about, since I've really been paying attention to the NBA, obviously Dirk, but LeBron James definitely, which, is, I'm going to be controversial to some of our, family and your viewers. But, he's going to be one of the greats. And, I think history has already shown the top three conversation is going to be him, Kobe, and Jordan, whichever order you want to put them in. But I think, a lot of people point to the championship record, and I think, people point to that, but that's a team accomplishment. But it seems like that, I mean, if you're going to go by the rings, then why aren't we talking, Bill Russell's the greatest? I think you can make arguments on both sides. LeBron has never lost first round of the playoffs, never been swept except for in the finals. Jordan got swept in the first round. But by that same token, you can say, well, Jordan's never gone to a game 7. I think like I said, there's arguments for whatever your belief is. I think they're very similar players. If you're talking about,
man, you want to talk about getting controversial right here, buddy?
I have the stats here. I'm ready for this conversation. Okay, so LeBron's playoff record this is Jordan's playoff record, 29-6. LeBron's playoff record is 35-10. Okay, LeBron is currently 3rd in points and 8th in assists. Jordan is obviously, I think he's 4th or 5th in points, but he's 45th in assists. LeBron holds the all-time record for playoff points. He's 3rd in playoff assists, 6th in playoff rebounds, and 1st in playoff minutes. Jordan's 2nd in playoff points and 10th in playoff assists. In his best season with the Heat, LeBron averaged 27 points, 6.6 assists, and 7.6 rebounds. Jordan's best season with the Bulls, he averaged 31.4 points, 5.7 assists, and 6.4 rebounds. You're talking about a 5-point difference. It's not like Jordan was he's blowing LeBron out of the water in stats. Now, 5 points determines, a win or a loss, but I think the point is LeBron, and this is going to be controversial as well, but LeBron came into the league at a time where there was just more talent. I think people also forget at the time there were the expansion teams coming when Jordan played. So, you had guys switching teams, being on teams, that didn't exist. A bunch of factors that really weren't present, during this time that LeBron's played. And, to that point, since Jordan, since his rookie year, there's only been 10 players who have made the All-Star game as a rookie. 8 of those players were in Jordan's time frame. Only 2 have happened since the year 2000. And I think that shows that there's a lot more competitiveness in the NBA, especially because you have guys now, and even like LeBron, who they live, breathe, eat basketball. That's, they're in the gym, not that Jordan wasn't, or not that anybody else in that time wasn't, but you have a lot more players like that now.
I was going to say, I don't think there's anybody out there, I think, save for Kobe, that worked harder than Jordan. I get all your stats. I really do. But Jordan never had to go and recruit an all-star team to win a championship. He didn't have to go get Dwayne Wade and hold on, kid. Hold on.
Okay.
Now, that team was built around him, and it was built of supporting players. Now, granted, Scottie Pippen blossomed into one of the best players in the NBA behind Jordan, but they didn't have to go out and recruit Scottie Pippen. Scottie Pippen was drafted to that team, groomed by that team, and grew into being an all-star player on that team. He didn't have to go, Jordan never held the press conference to say, hey, man, you know what? I'm tired of Chicago. I can't win in Chicago. I'm taking my talents over to, over to the parquet floors of Boston, and let me go win a championship over there on the tail end of the Celtics ride, or let me shoot down to LA over there where Magic Johnson's on the tail end of his career and win a championship down there. No, man, that dude fought through the Detroit Pistons. And you saw in that documentary the hell that the Pistons put him in, to the point where they had to come up with the Jordan rules, right? You saw that part, right? Mm-hmm. There are no LeBron rules, because if you touch LeBron, the dude falls over sideways holding his eyeball. And, you know, he's not only one of the greatest athletes, he's one of the greatest actors. How that dude hasn't won an Oscar yet is beyond me. Okay. Now hold on. Okay. I'm not done with you. Now, you can talk about being that NBA at that time being watered down or whatever you want to say. But the fact of the matter is, man, when you had to go up against as rookies, and you're right, he did get swept as a rookie, right? But he got swept by one of the greatest teams in the NBA in the Boston Celtics, right? He got swept by the Boston Celtics, scoring 49, scoring 63 in back-to-back games. Dude, come on now. Now, show me 2 games back-to-back where LeBron's put up damn near 50 points twice in a row in the playoffs. Because I'll tell you all the fourth quarters where he shrunk and scored 1 point, 2 points. We can go back to the 2011 Mavericks where Dirk was scoring 10 points, 10 points a quarter in the fourth quarter, and LeBron was averaging 2. Okay. And to sit there and say that LeBron is even anywhere near the same plane as Jordan is damn near sacrilege, because, man, you're right. LeBron's one of the best players in the NBA right now. But you put LeBron back then, he doesn't work nearly as hard as anybody else. You know, I don't think as Jordan. He doesn't have the killer mentality that Jordan had, or the killer mentality that Kobe had.
Well,
you know?
But I think, go ahead.
Yeah, some of that, though, some of your argument, I think, is purely subjective opinion, solely because LeBron became LeBron because he had Jordan to look up to. He had Kobe. And those guys, it's kind of like the Tiger Woods effect. You know, Tiger Woods, golf was a game that really a relatively small percentage of society could afford to play, or even tried to play. And when Tiger Woods came on the scene, what he did was he all of a sudden was the hero that so many young people of color, of different backgrounds, of different economic stratuses said, if Tiger Woods can do it, so can I. And to me, that was what helped change the game. And so you have to go back and kind of keep that in context when you talk about LeBron in his context. You know, I do think it's an argument for both sides to say, yeah, there's more talent in the league these days because kids start learning how to become superb athletes from the age of 4 and 5 years old. That didn't necessarily happen in our generation. We didn't have kids learning how to become professional athletes as, you know, as 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old kids. Right now, this brings up something that I saw. We were at the batting cages, Ellen's Fairway, out there just messing around. And in a couple of the cages over, there was a 5-year-old kid with his dad that was hitting the 60-mile-an-hour fastball. And his dad was sitting there coaching him, critiquing him. He had to go multiple sessions. And I thought to myself, there is what the evolution of sports has become, is you have parents that have become so obsessed with pushing their children that they basically get them the kind of training. They have the resources to become incredible athletes. And yes, natural skill is a big part of that formula. But if you have natural skill and you have someone who's pushing you and teaching you and going out there and getting you the best training, the best keep giving you the best health options. Of course, you're going to evolve the athlete himself. I mean, it's kind of the same thing we talk about in the NFL. We talk about how athletes have become bigger and stronger. And the reason that you have all these protective rules in the NFL is because athletes today can do more damage pound for pound than athletes 20 years ago. Right. And that, again, that's a function of because a lot of these athletes started off as children lifting weights, running sprints, being dedicated to building their bodies. And so you naturally have a progression of a better athlete. I think the same thing can be said for LeBron. LeBron probably is going to be to me, in my opinion, is going to be as competitive as LeBron. I mean, as Michael Jordan, if you keep them relative to their time period. And I would agree with you, Jay, that if LeBron was in the time of Jordan, maybe he doesn't because he didn't have the Jordan to drive him. Does that make sense? I mean, he didn't have that role model to set the bar. And so a lot of those athletes, when they started realizing that that's what they wanted to do, hell, we might even say LeBron might have played football, if he didn't have Jordan as a hero,
right?
Because he's built like a tank. The guy could have played football. You don't ever know. But it's so I think everything has to be really judged only in its context. That being said, I agree with a lot of what you said about Jordan, bro, that Jordan, he didn't go out and find the additional talent and basically take his talents and make them better. He was going to be great no matter what. And they built the team around him. They put the puzzle pieces together, and those people evolved. It's like you said, it was done very organically, but it's the evolution of the sport. Period. We don't grow things organically anymore. Everything is manufactured. Everything is it's for the most part it's already. I'm lost for words, but you know what I'm saying is that.
Yeah, I got it. And don't get me wrong. I in no way, shape or form, disparaging RJ's, love for, we all have those athletes that we fought, like we had a conversation earlier. Why Joe Montana? Why for me? It's hard to put a finger on why I thought Joe Montana was so great. But RJ, do you have any final thoughts here?
Yeah, so I have quite a few thoughts. So obviously, one thing is that, without Jordan, there's no Kobe, there's no, LeBron, there's not a lot of modern day athletes. So, I'm not one of those people that's like, oh, Jordan sucks. Like I said, you could put Kobe, LeBron, Jordan, whatever order you please. But I think they're the top three in the history of the game, whichever order it is to you. As far as the toughness thing, yeah, he flops a lot, but that's how the game's played these days. That's Ginobili started that, who we hate, the Spurs. But if those are the rules, why are you not gonna, why are you not gonna play to your advantage? I mean, I have a link that I can send you where there's plenty of plays where he finishes tough at the hole. He's got 2-3 guys on him. Like my dad said, he was coming out of high school also a top NFL prospect. I don't think that would be the case, if people felt he was weak. I mean, he's 3 inches taller than Jordan and almost 50, 60 pounds heavier. The dude's in the gym all the time. And, I do have an appreciation for Jordan. Obviously having 2 3-peats is very difficult. As far as, LeBron, leaving Cleveland, what would Jordan have done if he didn't have Jerry Krause or a great owner who was willing to put that support behind him? Is he going to stay there? And, no offense to Dirk, but if he wants to be the greatest of all time, is he going to, or, at least be in that conversation with Jordan, is he going to stay there and maybe only win 1 ring or possibly never, ever win a ring like Carmelo Anthony? or does he have to
but
go
I think the flip side to that is though, RJ, is that what made Michael Jordan so great was the fact that he had, I think, a better understanding of anybody, that he had to go from being the guy to being the team. And you saw that when they implemented the triangle offense, where they took away that role of being, hey man, everything's going to run through you. His previous two coaches were all about run everything through Jordan, to where Phil Jackson stepped in and goes, no, dude, everything doesn't have to run through you. We can win with the team around us by running this philosophy of offense. And to Jordan's credit, and what made him so great was the fact that he was able to adapt to that. And I don't know that LeBron would be able to adapt to that, but holy shnikes, don't go anywhere. Anyway, hold on to those thoughts, kids. Write them down, because we're already like an hour and 10 minutes, guys.
Okay.
We have 2 more episodes dropping on Sunday. RJ, we definitely want to have you back for more discussions about this, because I think we got a good thing going here. But we'll get together again next week. We'll talk about it some more. So just hold on to your thoughts. I know you're burning up over there. I can see it in your eyes. So,
well, I came ready for this conversation, but
good.
I do see what you're saying.
But here's what I'm going to do. So, RJ, thanks, buddy. Thanks for joining us this week. We're going to have you back on probably again next week, and we'll talk to you then. Okay? All right, buddy. Thanks, man.
See you guys. Stay safe. Love y'all.
All right. Love you too.
Love you too.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for giving us your time. I know we tried to see if we can shorten our podcast to 45 minutes, but we had such a great conversation going on. It doesn't even feel like it's been over an hour and 10 minutes now. But we certainly appreciate for you guys your support. Again, thank you for just giving us a few minutes, even if it's just a few minutes of your time. You listen to just part of the podcast. Thank you. And if you like what you see, please give us a like and a subscribe. Click on the links below. Jay, any last parting words until the next time?
No, man, I think that was awesome. I liked having RJ on. I definitely look forward to having him on future segments talking about that, because he, the kid, like I said, that's what I really wanted, was somebody else's perspective, because you and I, we're the old guys, we're only 2 years apart. We kind of lived through the same sports errors and things like that. And I think it's great that we had a different opinion, a different perspective on there. But I liked it, and the fact that I had to stop us, because we could have gone probably for another 45 minutes to an hour.
Yeah, definitely.
We let it go.
Right.
But
well, with that said, we want to say goodbye to everybody. Thanks again for your time. Until our next episode, shout out to Jesse P, because we could not do this without you. Until next time, I'm Roll.
I'm Jay.
And we'll see you.
See you around.